Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Mike Maynard, who's the Managing Director of Napier, which is a B2B marketing agency. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, Mike.
You're welcome. I'm excited to talk to you because I know that B2B is a large undertaking, and even though it is marketing and sales, you still are talking to organizations. So I know there's different nuances that we want to talk about. So give us a little bit of your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like to this point.
So my journey's been kind of unplanned. I started off as a electronics design engineer. That was my initial career. Then decided that I liked talking about electronics more than I did designing electronic systems. So I went into a technical support technical sales role. And then I think like all good entrepreneurs, when I was on a course, we went out for some drinks one evening and had probably one too many glasses of wine and decided that I was going to actually try and run my own company rather than, work within one.
Sure.
And ended up buying an agency that I was working with in that current role.
Well, that's one way to go into business. You just think here's a good idea, and rather than start from scratch, let's just buy one.
Absolutely. So the buying an agency was definitely good. I would say, and this is a bit of free advice to anybody thinking of buying an agency that focuses on technology. Don't do it 3 weeks before the entire market crashes. So
no.
we actually completed the acquisition only just before the dot-com crash hit in 2001. Wow. So timing was not brilliant.
Yeah, but obviously, if we knew the future, we would do a lot of different things. So the thing that I would say is you took action and you got it done, and it could have very well have been at the bottom of a uptick in the economy. So you obviously have made it through, and I'm sure you've got some wonderful stories to tell of lessons learned. Tell us a little bit about what your agency focuses on regarding B2B marketing.
Absolutely. So basically what we do is we help companies sell technical products to technical people. It's that simple. So we're helping companies from silicon chip manufacturers through to people who, one of our clients designed baggage handling systems for airports. So when you check your bag in, they're the people who make the systems that move the bag around the airport. So all very different kind of products or services, but all selling to someone who's making a very technical decision. So normally a very specialist person. And that's really what we're good at, is communicating and convincing that kind of audience.
I like the specificity of, selling technical products to technical companies, because now that really gets you down into that specific niche. What are some of the reasons that you chose that specific? Because when you can sell and market to organizations, it doesn't matter the widget or the product. So why did you choose that?
So the real reason why I chose it was I was an engineer. I was a bit of a geek. So that's kind of my area of interest. But actually, I think whilst you can market almost any product once you understand marketing, actually, if you specialize, you become really, really good at it.
Yeah.
And so what we wanted to do was be really good in a specific area rather than be, kind of meh, but in a much broader market.
Yes. Well, that's a really good point, is kind of go off of what you personally like, because then you get passionate about it. So how would you recommend someone who is looking to sell their product or service B2B, so business to business, how would you advise them to integrate in some passion and enthusiasm into their marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically, B2B companies, in the past have been fairly dull and boring in their marketing. But then when the salesperson goes in, they try and be really, excited and compelling. And it's almost like two different faces. And I think what you can do is you can learn from your best salespeople. What do your best salespeople do? How do they talk to the customer? How do they communicate that excitement in a discussion with the customer? And then that's what you want to take, that really exciting bit, and bring that into your marketing. And I think that's really effective because it's also very authentic. It's very much how, your best salesperson talks is really how the organization should talk.
Agreed. And that means you must know your target audience and some of their needs and desires and problems and how they communicate and their vernacular. And if you aren't diving in deep into that specific niche, many times you're not going to learn that. So that's one of the other reasons of picking a specific industry and really getting good at it, right?
Yeah, great point. I mean, every industry has its own language and its own issues. If you look at, B2B, for example, that's a good example generally because a lot of B2B purchases are driven by fear. People don't want to make the wrong mistake. And obviously IBM famously said nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. Probably the best known B2B marketing strapline.
Yep.
But actually, if you look at different industries have very different approaches to, what they consider to be risk and what they consider to be, potentially something that they need to be careful about. So, for example, if you're designing a baggage handling system, there's certain areas of risk you really care about. And actually baggage handling systems, a lot of it really is about making sure that the security screening gets done. Whereas if you're designing a plane, you absolutely want to make sure the wing doesn't fall off.
Yes.
And so the idea of reliability and quality can be very, very different for different industries. And I think understanding those people in your industries and the personas that you're trying to communicate with really does require some in-depth knowledge. And that's the reason why we focus down on a particular niche, so we can really understand a particular group of or particular audience that our clients are trying to reach, and then help them communicate more effectively.
100%. Well, talk a little bit about, do you have a specific maybe a methodology or a process that you would work with your clients on where you first will address messaging or first address something else and then move them through a specific blueprint or model?
Yeah, and we have what we call our 4-step process, which, not surprisingly, has 4 steps in it. And we built this, we looked at a lot of the research, and what we found was that quite often as an agency, people want to rush in and deliver work. And actually, you get better results if you take a step back and really plan and think about it first. It doesn't have to take very long, but thinking about things gives you much better results than just going straight in without any kind of consideration. So our 4 steps are firstly determine, and that's what I think most people would understand as situational analysis. Work out what the situation is. For example, that might be looking at market share. It might be looking at what competitors are doing. It might be looking at where you're strong and where you're weak, and really understand the market. The next section, the next step is called focus, and that's all about understanding the audience and how to communicate. So it's things like defining personas and customer journeys, and also the messaging you're going to use. And those 2 steps are our planning steps. And then we have a step we call deliver. That's doing the work. That's pretty straightforward. And then lastly, our final step is called enhance. And this is really important to us because I think a lot of people use reporting. They create reports. They look at them. They go, that was good or that was bad. And then move on and don't think about it. So all of our reporting is designed to either improve the current campaign whilst it's running or to make sure we learn lessons we can use in future campaigns. And so that's our approach, and that's why we, how we break up, developing and then executing a campaign.
Yeah, I love that. And you said something really interesting, which is you actually do some things before executing the campaign. Wow, that's pretty groundbreaking. Most people think, ooh, I'm going to execute and go, run, and then see where things lay. But there's a lot of work that goes before that.
You'd be amazed, and companies of any size, it's not just companies that may be less experienced or knowledgeable about marketing, but even very large enterprises. Quite often it would be, we need to do a direct email campaign on this. Let's write emails and send them. And they don't even think whether email is the right channel to use.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is just take that little step back. And, I talked through some of the things we do. And with, big projects, we might spend, considerable time. But for a very simple project, we might just spend a very short time just talking to the client about, let's just make sure this is the situation, right? This is what you want to change. And these are the people you want to reach. And this is how we're going to talk to them. And that can be the first two steps in a single phone conversation. It doesn't have to take a long time. But taking those steps is really important. If you don't do it, then you can rush off. You can deliver a campaign. It can be a well-executed campaign. But if you use a channel that's not right, or you've talked to the wrong people, then it's not going to actually generate any impact on the business. And that ultimately is what you've got to do with any marketing campaign.
100%. It's like the old saying, ready, aim, fire. Too many people go fire, 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 aim. Maybe now we forget ready all the way. So you just really need to know, begin with the end in mind. What do you guys advise your clients on setting goals or metrics or KPIs? Because I know that's super important.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. The first thing is, do we recommend setting goals? We absolutely do. We absolutely measure ourselves on them. And we do occasionally go back and say, we've missed the target. There can always be outside factors that stop you achieving your objective. And I think it's super important, to be honest. If you're in a situation where you tried to make a campaign work and it didn't work, but you've understood the reason, that comes back to enhance. Because if you understand why it didn't work, you won't make that same mistake next time. Or alternatively, you'll put something in to compensate for the impact of whatever external factor, caused you to miss your campaign. So we absolutely recommend you set objectives. And we also recommend that clients set objectives that are as business-focused as possible. So, it's very easy in marketing, particularly digital marketing, to get seduced by all the data that comes out of a digital campaign. And you can talk about, email clicks or banner clicks and opens and impressions, and you get all this data. But honestly, for a lot of clients, we say to them, well, what does an ad impression mean to your business? And they're like, well, no idea. Well, why are we measuring it then? What do you really care about? You care about new customers or sales or maybe leads or, let's focus on measuring that. And if we're using any of the kind of, synthetic metrics you get from digital, let's make them an intermediate metric to work out how well we're doing at achieving the ultimate goal. Let's not make them the ultimate goal.
Yes, because you have to have specific metrics that happen before the big metric. And what I mean by that is ultimately you want a sale, or you want a relationship, or you want this, transaction to conclude. But there could be metrics that happen before that lead you closer to that. You can't just go right to, hi, my name is, would you like to buy X?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, my example would be an email campaign that is trying to drive sales. And ultimately, you might drive leads, that then go to the sales team, that then drive sales. That could be a long way down the road. So what you might do, for example, is you might, initially work out, well, how many emails are sent. If I only sent one email, I'm probably not going to get 10 sales out of it because I only sent one email. And I might know that actually normally we get, say 1% of the people we send emails to will actually go and buy. So if I want 100 sales, I'm going to have to send 10,000 emails. But the goal of the campaign is not to send that many emails. The goal of the campaign is sales. Never forget that. That email measurement is just the first step to make sure you're heading in the right direction. It's nowhere near anything that should be used to evaluate whether the campaign was successful or not.
Yes, 100%. Well, Mike, I think that is some sage advice, and I really think that people should listen to that, find out what some of those metrics are in your business, find out how your target audience communicates so you can fine-tune your messaging and make your B2B marketing stand out. So what's the best way that someone can reach out and see how Napier could help their organization sell more to B2B contexts that they work with?
Well, people can obviously find us on the web. Our website is napierb2b.com. They can find me on LinkedIn, Mike Maynard. You might need to add Napier afterwards, but generally speaking, I come up pretty high. There's not a huge number of Mike Maynards, and I'm not the professional American football coach. Or alternatively, if people just want to ask me something, I'm very happy for them to email me direct, mike@napierb2b.com.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Thanks very much for having me on the show, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.